Okay, so I'm really honored to be on stage with Jeremy Miller. He really is a real-life blockchain superhero. And we've worked really closely together since September in Dubai. And I'm just going to give a brief history on what is happening in Dubai, just historically in technology and things that they're doing there. And I think Jeremy's going to speak after me on what does it take to be the first city powered on a blockchain, which is Dubai's goal. So for those of you that don't know, Dubai was a desert, and the UAE didn't exist as a country until the 1970s. And you probably only hear about Dubai in terms of crazy indoor ski slopes and the largest shopping malls and man-made islands and man-made canals and things like that. But what is super fascinating about Dubai, and the reason why I started traveling there since 2002, was just it's an emerging city that's really vitally important in just this region called Manasa, which is not only the Middle East, but North Africa and South Asia. It's really an incredible regional hub that has tons of potential that I think Jeremy can go into. And I think not only that, as blockchain is a technology that didn't emerge from Silicon Valley, and you see the hub of it in places like Dubai, you see it being built and developed by people from so many different countries that bring so many different perspectives. And I ended up doing a lot of research in Dubai because I was studying women in technology, and in Dubai and a lot of the Arab world, women make up 60% of the computer science majors. And in addition to that, the women in senior leadership roles in Dubai and the UAE in general, in terms of ministers and members of parliament, and leading people in the workforce in both the public and private sector, far exceeds the US and Europe. And I ended up learning, I think the reason why I came to Consensus was a year before Dubai announced a mandate that by 2020 all transactions and government records will be on a blockchain. I had heard through their government that they were going to be opening a Dubai Future Foundation, which is a future academy, a museum of the future, an accelerator, which they've already had 9 blockchain companies be part of, and it's not even a year old. So it's a super fascinating place, and my colleague Jeremy, the blockchain superhero, is now going to talk about our work with them.
Except for I'm not. I'm going to talk about 3 things.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about national competition, technology competition, and then, yes, I will talk a little bit about what Dubai is doing to try and win these competitions. So one of the things that we're seeing globally, not just in Dubai, but in a collection of states, is this race to be next. And really, it's countries like Dubai, or like the UAE, like Dubai, yeah. Singapore, Luxembourg, and Hong Kong, where we see a combination of top-down control, but very progressive thinking, but most importantly, an eye on the prize. And the prize is the 40% of the planet that doesn't have access to the global financial system, right? And so we've seen very strong leadership in blockchain in all of these geographies. And what's interesting is they're all interconnected. So we recently had a meeting with the financial regulator in Dubai a week after the Monetary Authority of Singapore was here in our office in Bogart Street. And after about 5 minutes, we learned that the following Tuesday, they were flying to Singapore to meet with the MAS. So despite the fact that these countries are in competition, they're also in close collaboration. And what is it that they're thinking about? Well, they're thinking about many things. They're thinking about the experience of their own country and how to make it better and how to make it a desirable place and how to effectively win the war for talent on a global scale. And they're also thinking about what does this mean as a place for doing business, where the local economies are sizable, but not nearly as sizable as being a hub to access Manasa. So think about the process of doing AML and KYC. Whichever one of these hubs becomes the winner for global AML and KYC has a really good chance of becoming the preferred on-ramp to connect the underbanked into the global financial system, right? Because it turns out the underbanked probably aren't going to go to banks at all. They're probably going to use their cell phones. And so what does it mean to onboard someone who's using quite likely a cryptocurrency on their cell phone to integrate into the global financial system? What does it mean to securitize microloans, right? These types of more traditional integrations into the financial system will come through these hubs and will come through the blockchain. So at this point in time, what we're seeing is intense interest on building the foundational services to be potentially the platform winner, to use a technology term, for that group of people. So we are not surprisingly not only doing a lot of work in Dubai, where we are a blockchain city advisor to Dubai and engage deeply on the strategic blockchain roadmap, but also we're building deep relationships in Singapore, in Luxembourg, in Hong Kong, et cetera. So thing is, other people have figured this out too, and in particular, a big blue company that has the initials IBM has figured this out too. So one of the things that we are seeing is, yes, there is a blockchain technology competition for token launches and crypto exchanges, and also in the large investment banks in Wall Street and in London. But there is an incredibly intense level of technical competition taking place in Singapore, in Hong Kong, in Luxembourg, and in Dubai. So scrappy little ConsenSys was appointed as co-advisor with IBM to develop the national blockchain strategy for Dubai, and we have similar relationships elsewhere around the globe. This is quite a tall order, because somehow we need to use our brains, since IBM at last count I think had 400,000 employees and we have about 200. We have to use our brains to counter their brawn. But we have one thing that they do not have, and that is we have Ethereum. And what's interesting is, when we engage with central banks, national governments, thought leaders globally, of course there is some degree of what the hell is this, right? But there is also an appreciation for the breadth of the vision. And there's a couple of things that we say that really resonate. And one thing that we say is, in 5 years' time, every large company, every government will have a public blockchain use case. And when you think about things like immigration control, visas control, AML, KYC, access to financial services, these are trans-global services, right? And trans-global services needs a trans-global protocol. And right now, if you look at the other companies and other technologies that are vying at this sort of private permission nation-scale blockchain, like the Big Blue company, they're all starting with a proprietary and somewhat centralized blockchain technology. And it's very hard for us to see how you can begin with a private blockchain and expand it into a public blockchain, because you won't have built two things: the crypto economics to make it work, or the global developer community. And so we might show up in meetings and there might be 20 people from IBM and 3 people from us, but somehow we're able to hold our own on the slide production, but more importantly, we have Ethereum as our tool. And so just as intense as the competition in the blockchain market is here in New York, it is arguably even more intense in Dubai and Singapore and Luxembourg and Hong Kong. So given all that, what is Dubai actually doing? Dubai has taken a extremely forward-looking view, not only on blockchain, but on automated cars, flying cars, AI, and many other emerging technologies. And going about it quite aggressively. So Dubai's established an AI lab quite recently, as well as what they're doing with blockchain. Uber and Tesla have both developed strategic relationships with the Dubai government. So there's a lot of broad innovation happening, but they're not trying to do it in steps. They're really trying to do it in leaps and bounds. And so in our strategic work, we look at not only how can blockchain be used to improve the delivery of government services and increase coordination, but also how can some of these services be reinvented, right? And you're going to see some announcements over the coming weeks, fingers crossed, knock on wood, that start to illustrate some of the concepts that we've been working on over the last 6 to 12 months. So the actual process that's been used, though, really is a showcase in how to do this. Well before the blockchain initiative was announced last October, for about a year, the team had been scouring the globe, looking at the best practices in investment banks, by other governments, traveling to Silicon Valley, traveling to New York, traveling to Singapore, traveling to London, and really came up with the realization that they didn't want to do it anything like any of those constituents, and wanted to create their own thing. And their own thing is fairly stunning in scale. During our work, we have reviewed over 3,000 government services, and are conducting a series of workshops across all of the government entities in the country to try and ideate a series of use cases into actual applications, right? So this is quite a lot of work, it turns out, right? To go through that process. And it's being done in a very rigorous way. When we look at a use case, we scorecard it against blockchain properties based on its use of the cryptographic network and digital signatures, the distributed ledger itself, smart contracts, tokenization, and identity. And we develop a scorecard of the use case that we can present to the minister or the director general and say, look, here is why this use case fits well in the blockchain. This looks like something you get out of a McKinsey presentation. And not surprisingly, our team in Dubai has a fair number of McKinsey and Bain consultants on it. And we really go through with a degree of rigor, at least I haven't seen in the industry elsewhere, to explain to people how the benefits are going to come through. So we're able to take this, and this is where it gets really boring for the crypto heads in the audience, but we're able to do things like make estimates of the cost savings if you move paper-based property transactions to the blockchain. But the outcome of this is really, really, really big numbers. And so we've made a lot of progress in a very short period of time. We were appointed Blockchain City Advisor in February, around Valentine's Day, around a little after, yeah, after the EA launch, about a week after the EA launch, I think. About a week after the EA launch, and are now the first RFPs actually came out about a week ago, I think, for these use cases to be developed into applications. And we're expecting, I think this phase of the project that we're involved in wraps up at the end of July. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, there will be about 20 blockchain applications being put for tender, and it will be quite extraordinary. And our role in all of this is, we're trying to do two things. One, we're trying as objectively as possible advise the government on what we think they really should do. And as Alex Batlin once said, that means saying no 99 times out of 100. And also try to make sure that they don't make a disastrous technology choice and work with IBM. So we have a few minutes left if there are any questions. What are the biggest problems we encounter? I don't think we're really encountering problems. One of the key success factors to turn that around is to provide a degree of blockchain education that makes it very clear to someone who doesn't care about technology why they should care about this one. So if you run a hospital network, you don't necessarily care about mining or consensus protocols. You care about data privacy, you care about lost patients' records, you care about the efficiency of the billing system. And so one of the things that we as a company have developed out of this is much stronger methodologies for delivering that message to non-technical people. And combining that with a degree of baseline education as to how blockchains work and convincing them that they can trust critical business processes on this infrastructure.
And it's interesting because in Dubai, it's a mandate that all government entities, have to follow by 2020. So all the ministries are taking it very seriously. So I think that's the upside, that they have to, they're educating themselves and they have to do something. And I think it's not necessarily a challenge, but it's just something to get used to. I think when you're dealing with any government, there's a great deal of coordination required. So I think that any project that you're doing would require multiple stakeholders and entities. So that's something that we've been learning.
Oh, Is that Amber? Well, one of our close strategic relationships has developed a private permissioned version of Ethereum called Quorum at JP Morgan, and which we're using quite extensively in many of our implementations around the world, including some of these government projects where, if you haven't looked at Quorum, Quorum uses is an extension to stock Ethereum that enables transaction privacy and a different way of doing transaction coordination on the Ethereum network, on private Ethereum networks, while still integrating into public Ethereum. And so we're actually using that in a couple of use cases for government projects.
Can you say about more specific fields in Dubai where you're using blockchain? So, for example, which field? Not an overall, but some.
Well, what's interesting, it's all the ministries.
Yeah, so the approach that we've actually taken is sector by sector. Actually, the approach the government has taken is to look at this sector by sector. And I think we categorized it across 12 key sectors. So housing, tourism, transport, finance, et cetera. And then within that, and this is one of the things that's an interesting element, both of this project and blockchain adoption generally, is it's not very helpful to go and just talk to one entity, right? So if you think about something like a housing development, to approve a housing development, it requires the Department of Land, the utility, the developer, the bank, many different actors to actually approve the next step change in that process, right? So taking this sort of industry vertical or thematic approach and then pulling together the stakeholders has been pretty critical in developing use cases that look like they could be successful. All right, we got time for one question. All right, middle.
What degree are you involved with the 2020 Expo? 2020 Expo Dubai?
Yeah, so Dubai, so we've had some conversations with the Expo 2020 team. Dubai is one of the interesting things about Dubai is they're good at coordinating their timelines across multiple projects to sort of culminate in something. I mean, Rahila, do you want to add
So
to that?
the theme of Expo 2020 is connecting minds, creating the future, and a vision of innovation through collaboration. So as Jeremy mentioned, I think the Dubai Future Foundation and Accelerator is a part of that. And with Smart Dubai, which is the entity that named us as the official blockchain advisor to the city of Dubai, they aim for Dubai to be the happiest city using AI, IoT, and blockchain. So I think a lot of the work that we're doing will be part of the showcase when I think there's a lot of tourists. I can't remember the exact, but they're expecting the Dubai Expo 2020 to be the world's most attended World Expo, and they want it to be the best expo ever in history that will never be outdone. So a lot of the technologies that we're going to be working on will hopefully be on display in 2020. So that's where we should all be.
All right, well, we're out of time, so it's time to load up the next block.